Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my friends at Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. Printing your creators' projects, I know, can be confusing, stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. They have a great tool, the Instant Quote Calculator, that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free. And they have 24-hour customer support, and Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. You can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials, and the company has also printed many successful Kickstarter campaigns, and a bunch of people who I have interviewed in the past have actually used Mixum, and you can actually hear a bunch of those interviews on this very show. And Mixum offers services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK, and Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And currently, they're running a promotion where listeners of the show can actually drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of their current order to get a 5% discount on their first order. That's Mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of your current order to receive a 5% discount off of your very first order. And so, without further ado, I have KJ, who is a comic creator, on the show for the first time, and I am super excited because you are from Singapore. I never had anybody from Singapore, so welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks, Andrew. So let me just introduce myself. I'm KJ, and like Andrew mentioned, I'm actually from Singapore, which means I'm actually 12 hours ahead of Andrew right now. It's actually in the morning, 8 a.m. over here.
No. Well, we're time traveling. That's what we're going with.
Yeah, time traveling to the future, right? I'm traveling back to the past.
Exactly. We're breaking the stream here for all those who would like to join us. You know, obviously, this is called time traveling, and you got a lot going on with your Kickstarter, the world's my arena, which is up in about 16 days. So I think the best place to start is that this is obviously a graphic novel. So what is the idea behind this graphic novel, and what is it about? Because I've obviously read about half of it. I'm halfway through, and I love it. And I don't want to ruin too much before we dive into it.
Okay, so in a nutshell, The World Marina is actually mainly focusing about martial arts, of course, and it focuses around the protagonist, which is oversized, low self-esteem teenager. So it shows basically how he grows in martial arts and his encounters with martial arts. So basically, this teenager who's known as Nathan, he's being bullied by his classmates, being dismissed by his teacher. So basically, everyone in his life is looks down on him. Yeah, except for his little sister. So the story goes as he encounters all this bullying by his school, and he meets the school janitor who helps him out, and that is how he encounters martial arts. But of course, this sounds like a classic underdog kind of story. Okay, so he starts off weak, and then afterwards he becomes strong and fight back and stuff like that. But I'm sure there's a lot of twists within this story. So what happens is it's not just him being strong and then so he gains martial arts, so he helped the weak and so on. But there's a lot of morality issues within this comic. So how he has to struggle within, and when he becomes strong, how is he gonna treat back those who had treated him badly before? And yeah, that's mainly about how the story goes. I would say there's a lot of twists and turns and unexpected storyline going in here.
So I want to even go further into this, but I am super curious because obviously my company's name is Pop Anime Comics. That's my website. That's sort of the entire Conversations in Pop Culture. It's a derivative out of that. And so obviously I love anime, I love manga, I love all that stuff. But where did the inspiration for this even come from? Because obviously this is somewhat of a classic story, but there are some twists and turns that come into the first, 7 issues of this book. And what was the inspiration for you to want to go out and create something like this? Because it is more manga oriented versus American comic oriented. And I love it because of that. So what was the whole inspiration?
Okay, so I started this comic, or perhaps you can say manga, because I was a manga lover and anime lover since young. Yeah. My main inspiration, I would say, is Hunter x Hunter. And yeah, so okay, so how did I came up with this main character? Why is the main character as such? It's because when I was watching anime or reading manga, right? So like Hunter x Hunter back then, it was a Bleach. What else was there? Hitman Reborn. So I realized that all manga, or most manga, actually their main characters are very lovable. Uh, just very handsome looking, good looking. Yeah, compared to the rest of the characters and so on. So I thought, okay, why not I come out with a character that is against the norm? Okay, would people still love this character if he's not as good looking in a way determined by society norms and so on? So that's that's how I came out with the character himself. And as for the storyline, I actually love how manga and anime compared to Western comics in terms of storytelling is that it's very progressive in a way whereby we get to see really a lot of character development during the stories, and how well tight knit the the characters are with each other. So for between the main characters and the side characters, there's really strong character development throughout these stories. Yeah. So that is where I get my inspiration behind this story of how I develop the story, how I conceptualize the characters within the story as well.
And then obviously I want to dive into a bunch of this stuff. So we have the main character whose name is Nathan. Obviously, he's a little bit larger than most, and I'm trying to be as politically correct as possible here. Um, and obviously, he's a nerd type character. He's abused by his classmates. He's dismissed by his teachers and overlooked by everyone else in his entire world. And obviously, I know people like that. I wasn't the popular kid in high school. I was targeted a lot for a lot of things. And, obviously, what was this like really creating Nathan? And I know you were speaking about it a little bit, talking about the main character, but that is very much a character that in anime, we sort of get the character who is offbeat a little bit, but we don't full get the nerd who goes through a big transformation. And it's very, this is very much in the likes of the Karate Kid to some degree as well, where obviously, but it's nice to see, somebody who is, not in good shape get the ability to, sort of get trained and all that stuff. So what was this like? Because also even just the aspects of bullying too, because you nail it. I've been bullied. I don't know if you've been bullied, but obviously I know what that's like. So that's also some very cool where it's very well done. And I find that a lot of this is a little bit, it's a comic, but the core of it is really there. And that's the important part.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I try to bring out something that's more relatable to people. So even while we are not the one who bully people, or the ones who get bullied, in a way, when as we are growing up, we really see this bullying since within the school, even if it's more minor cases, like for example just verbal bullying, or even more when it gets to more serious, it could perhaps really get to this kind of stage. Yeah, so while we may not be the one who gets gotten bullied, but I'm pretty sure most of us have known a friend or someone who has to undergo all this kind of treatment within the school. So that kind of relatability perhaps could lead to people to enjoy the story even more. And of course, it brings out. I hope it brings out a message that hey, we shouldn't be doing this, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then obviously even going further into Nathan, and I'm going to spoil a little bit of it, but I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, is that obviously he sort of gets introduced to this character who's the janitor, who starts, I guess, maybe that takes a little pity on him, but also recognizes and starts teaching him some martial arts and how to train and how to defend himself. And even that transformation with Nathan is very cool because obviously I did martial arts for years, and it changes the way you do things when you're strong and when I could flip off a back fist very, very quickly. And that was kind of my thing. I know that all of a sudden when push comes to shove, I could hold my own in a fight. It changes the way you walk. It changes the way you do things. And so I very much relate to this. And while Nathan is sort of struggling at first, but then, well, he's on that journey, and even capturing that transformation is very, very cool too. And it's nice to see that transformation. And what is that like to write that and draw that and express that? Because we get to see somebody who isn't, it's the massive underdog, go through and become more appreciated throughout this entire series.
Okay, so for the growth in the martial arts within how he trains in the martial arts, the progress and the challenges he faced, all this is actually also related to myself, because back at the time, I don't really practice it now, but back at the time I'm really into martial arts as well. So I actually spent 3 years studying Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee, and also 1 year in boxing as well. So all these are influences within the first volume over here. So I had implemented all these influences within it. So even for the training wise, those are really training that of what I did, and encounters of what I faced with while training. So like couldn't move or the kind of stuff. It's like slow reaction, or all those are being implemented within it. So I guess it helps having some martial arts knowledge, or like small background. I'm not really good at it as well. So it helps with the.
Let's go further into that though, because since you've done it, and obviously I've done it, my friends are still doing it. They're either 4th, 5th, or 10th degree black belts at this point. I'm not going to tell you their rank, because if you're ever with me and you come swinging at me, I want to be able to defend myself. And what I mean by defend myself is they'll defend me. That's such a bad joke in so many ways. And I just volunteered my friends to essentially be bodyguards. So there you go right there. But it's this idea that you know what you're talking about when you're writing this. And not to say that obviously writers take concepts and drawers take concepts of things they know and they don't know, and then they conceptualize it and research. But it's very cool when somebody who actually did martial arts and studied it and was active in it is doing a martial arts comic.
Yeah, I think, okay. The word Marina is actually my first comic. So when I started out, I thought, okay, why not try something that is closer to myself? It's much easier to write because there's less research to do as well, since I'm already in it. So sort of I have a back knowledge of it. So that actually helps with the writing process, the drawing process. As we all know, comics drawing, comics writing takes a long time. Yeah, and the research probably takes up a huge amount of time as well. So being involved in martial arts definitely helped to save up some time, because I could just use what I have learned in training, what I've experienced to incorporate within it. Yeah. So so I think it's also easier for someone, for a writer, to pick a subject or topic that they are more well versed in to write, rather than just starting a new one. Of course, that we should all challenge ourselves to something
No, we really shouldn't. That's a bad idea. We should all not challenge ourselves. I'm so sorry. It's just. But even going into that, and obviously, and to talk about the other side of the coin here, which is his teacher as well, because obviously that's the other thing that's cool about this, is that we have the janitor, and the janitor is teaching in a style that and I know certain people teach in that style, and very much like the sensei teaching. And so it's very, very cool to that point as well, where that's there. And so there's some stuff about the janitor that we sort of find out, and his teaching style and why he's teaching and what exactly is going on. And what was that like building him out? Because that's a crucial part of this as well, of the teacher and what's going on behind that, and that training, and even the motives and the rationale behind it.
Okay, so for the teacher himself, I can't share too much at this point in time, because his main story will really be fleshed out in volume 2. But within volume 1, we see bits and pieces of his backstory, and how it came about. So if you take notice, within the story, he's actually missing one thumb on the right hand. Yeah. he actually has a scar on the face as well. So that's pretty obvious for the scar. Yeah, so all these are bits and pieces, and we could see that his character is a little goofy, but at the same time there's this deep sorrow within him lah. I hope I delivered that within the volume 1. But of course his main story will really be fleshed out. At least his story arc will be fleshed out within volume 2 itself. So I can't share too much at this point in time, but yeah.
So I'm not going to push too hard on that because I don't want to ruin certain things. But obviously, even going forward, and you were talking about it a little bit before, and you didn't read my interview, and I'm going to say that right off the top. You didn't see my interview, and you sort of touched upon a bunch of stuff I wanted to talk about, because one of the things that Volume 1 starts exploring, and this is something that's super interesting, and I alluded to it as well, is that, this is, Nathan is getting the responsibility to being able to defend himself. And also, he is sort of, there's potential being seen in him for the first time is in this book. And then really the main question that's being asked is that, okay, Nathan now can do more than just defend himself. And Nathan can now go and actually do some serious damage or hold his own in a fight. And, he might not win every fight that he's in if he's getting picked on, but he can thrash around, and somebody throws a punch at him, he could throw one back pretty hard. And people are going to come out with bruises, and he might win all of them at this point. And so this is exploring the fact that you now have this ability to go do this, and all these people have treated you bad. What do you do as far as treating those people, dealing with how they treated you, and then, the obligation you have to yourself and a variety of other things that are going on. So obviously a lot of stuff's going on in morality and objectivity and all sorts of cool stuff. And what was that like? Because that's a real good question. When you've been bullied and now the power dynamic switches, how do you manage your power?
Yeah, so that's one thing that I was conceptualizing as well during the writing process. So the thing is, I feel that there's always this struggle, like while if we are the ones that got bullied, and then now that we have the power within our hands, how will we really change it? Of course, we see all superheroes comics. Okay, the greater the responsibility, the greater the power, the greater responsibility within your hands. We all try to do good. We don't hold grudges against the past. We try to be the bigger man. But in reality, I feel that we all have that little selfishness within ourselves. So, in a way, is it so easy to just let go of your past grudges, or and things like this? So that was one area that I tried to tackle. Okay, perhaps it's not as easy, or even when we are trying to accept our past or like live on with it, there's always this struggle to or the process to become okay with your past, to accept your past, or like to forgive those who have treated you that in such a manner. Yeah. So I explored that theme within the story as well. So he actually spoiler alert. So he actually went back to find to fight back against some of his former those bullies to him. So yeah, and he really learned along the way as how to accept his past, how to forgive those who have treated him that way. Yeah, so it's really a struggle rather than just, okay, I have newfound powers, I have newfound abilities, so I'm gonna be a bigger man right now and I forgive everyone.
It's very, very interesting, because once you know what you can do, and speaking as somebody who got bullied and then started getting muscles when I was in high school, and a lot of push-ups and building at your chest, and now you're not, the chubby, scrappy kid anymore, and you don't look like you can blitz off a line, but when push comes to shove, you can, and people are seeing you in the locker room like, oh snap, you actually have muscles, you're working out a lot, and that while you have a little fat on you, you're beyond athletic. Your heart rate is low, and people start looking at you differently. And then also all the kids who bullied you are saying, what's going on with him? And, it's very interesting knowing that, I can't be the aggressor. And it's a very weird thing when you're in a position where you're not a target anymore, or if they target you, it gets so weird and it's so relatable. And I don't know how many people who are going to watch this have been doing that. And if you get to this point in the interview and you're watching it, please give this thing a heart, because obviously I'm super curious about that question. But it's so relatable for anybody, I think, who's ever been bullied and ever been targeted. And then there's always a shift, whether that's with age or anything else. And then it's like, okay, don't, because sometimes you want to just rub their face in it. You're bullied. It's so true. And it's just, this is though taking that higher road. And that's something that I think, it's hard. It's hard to do. It's not easy. I'm not going to pretend. And so I just love how it's so relatable, because I think so many people can relate to this in so many ways. And I think you nailed it on the head really well.
Thank you.
And so I obviously don't want to push too much further into this story, because there's so much more to talk about with it, though. And obviously, I love the fact that it has an anime feel to it. It's obviously very manga oriented. It's got a little bit of American in it, but it's definitely a lot more manga oriented. But again, I don't want to ruin too much of it. And one of the things, though, I am curious about is that this is not a comic book. This is a graphic novel. It's a collection of the first 7 issues. And so what prompted you to go the first 7 issues versus it in single issues, or releasing 2 issues at a time and then doing a trade later and all that stuff? Because obviously there is a different marketing strategy that goes into pushing out a graphic novel. There's a different marketing strategy pushing out a 7 arc thing. Also, you might have a whole different plan for the way this series should go versus, what we do in America, which is single issues. And so what prompted to want you to produce a graphic novel versus a single issue?
Okay, so actually I started the World Marina as a single issues publication. So it started in 2019, I think 2 years ago, roughly about this time as well, so almost exactly 2 years. I started with the first issue on Kickstarter. So it was just really the first chapter itself. So I started with that, and then it was successful, and subsequently I just released issue 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to issue 7 as single issues. Of course, there's a difference with this right now. Back then, it was just pure black and white, just inks.
We're going to talk about it, I promise. Yeah. I have pictures. Don't worry, I have pictures that are going to highlight this, and I promise, and we're going to talk about it. So continue. I came prepared.
Okay, so yeah, so it was just black and white back then, just pure black and white. Then afterwards, I decided to do the graphic novel this year, or more like the collector edition this year, with a remastered feel. So there's more grayscale and screen toning, so more towards the manga rather than a very raw feel of just the black and white inks itself. Yeah, so as to why I decided to go the collector edition right now, rather than continue my single issues all the way perhaps until the end of the series before I collect into one, is because I was reconsidering my plans of my approach towards doing comics. I felt that the single issues is a little bit more work in terms of the fulfillment process. Really, there's a lot of work to do for.
Oh man, I have so many
packaging for the packaging and everything. So it's I have to basically, if I have one reader, then I'll have to do it 7 times. Packing the single issue 7 times rather than
to even talk about this, because this is a big debate that's going on in comics right now. And I love these conversations, because in America, a lot of people are moving to oversized issues, 36 pages, 42 pages, 72 pages. And people are saying, oh, it's sort of like a graphic novel. Okay, no, it's not a graphic novel. 70 pages is not a graphic novel. I don't care if you think it is, you're wrong. That is a mini graphic novel or an oversized one-shot. That is not a graphic novel. A 70-page comic is not a graphic novel. And if you try to sell it to me as a graphic novel, you're just wrong. You could say it's nicely bound like a graphic novel. You could call it a mini graphic novel, fine. But that's what a lot of comics are moving to, because people want complete stories. also what's happening is that with my collection, I'm now moving into what they're doing with Image and a variety of other books where it's being nicely bound as a nice omnibus and a hardcover. And so that's the other thing that I think is also happening in comics right now is people want things on their shelf and they want them to stay on their shelf. And nicely, they want to read it, but then they want to display it boldly. And they don't want those soft cover measly books. So I think even going with that, and obviously the work part of it as well, is probably a big factor. So I'm curious what you think about all of that and where that's moving, because I think that collected editions is that there's a bunch of fans who say, look, I just want to display this on my shelf because it looks like a beautiful book, and that's where I want to go with it, and I want it to last for the next 15 years.
Yeah, so I think I had the same feeling as with you on this issue of I want a nice book on my shelf. Actually, I guess I went into the collector edition also because of Image Comics. I like their deluxe hardcover. It's really nicely made. The size is just nice. It's not like too big, too bulky like an omnibus, like Marvel omnibus, where it's very difficult to read. While it's not too flimsy like a single issues to in terms of reading, like, okay, oh, I'm just done with the first issue, and then now I have to wait again, or it's just easier to read. Even if I want to do it again, I just pull it off the shelf and then I can just open it up and read. I love the single issues definitely because I'm a comics collector as well, so I collect all the single issues, all the valuable stuff, or at least to me. Yeah, and then there's the collectability part of it. So, for example, if I collect a Marvel issue from the past, I have to be very careful not to damage it while I read through. So, I guess that part of me, the collector's part of me, make it more difficult for me to read a single issue because I had to be extra careful. I had that tendency to just be flipping it through it very, very slowly. Whereas for a hardcover or for a graphic novel, I could read it with much more ease. I could really enjoy the process of like flipping through it. Yeah, and of course it looks much nicer on the shelf.
I also think that what's happening now, and look, I read a lot of comics digitally. I have a Comixology subscription, and so most of the comics I read are digital. I buy what I like, and with graphic novels, I tend to buy really nice hardcover books. So I'm picking up the Berserk books, and I'm picking up the Hellsing books by Dark Horse, the nicely hardcover 3 issues with the ribbon in them. I backed the Curse Words book by Ryan Brown and Charles Soule on Kickstarter because it's a beautiful book, and I loved Curse Words. But, if there was a soft cover of that book, I wouldn't be interested because that defeats the entire purpose of that book. The whole purpose of that book is meant to be hardcover, and it's meant to be beautiful, and it's meant to be really nice. So that's something that I thoroughly enjoy. And that's something that I think, also people are saying, look, I want something that is really nicely done. Because if I like this series, I want to be able to put it on my shelf, and I'm only buying, 20 graphic novels a year, and the 20 I'm buying matter. And I think that that's also a big part of it at this point. And then obviously going even further, I don't know what the comic market looks like in Singapore, but obviously the 3 biggest markets are Japan, France, and the United States. And, for me, I don't want to have to buy your book 7 times and have to pay shipping from Singapore. No offense, man. No offense. But you know what is? We in the U.S., we don't want to ship to you guys either. And yes. It's not that we don't like you people in Singapore. International shipping is so complicated right now. Okay, it cost me. I bought a book from Canada. It was $22 in shipping. To send something from Philadelphia to my house in Connecticut is $10. It's more like $10.45. So it's shipping is already expensive enough, and for me to do it 7 times, that's $140, give or take, if not more. And that's the other thing, because most of your clients are probably not in Singapore.
Yeah, so the shipping is really, really expensive. International shipping, it's like if I had to do a single issue, I think the international shipping would even cost more than the single issue itself. Yeah, it just doesn't really make sense in the long run. Of course, if it's just a single one-off release, I think it's still acceptable. I guess that's why people went with the oversized single issues or like the mini graphic novel that you mentioned. So they still keep the essence of the single issue, but they just went a little more in terms of content because simply it doesn't really makes too much sense for an indie creator to go or at least an international one like me on in Singapore, and I have to send to the United States like over and over and over again. I think it's too costly on the
It gets very expensive, and I'm running into this problem with a particular book that I'm a fan of that's up in Canada, and he's doing a catch-up whole thing. I'm really skipping the catch-up because the $22 cuts so much into me, and while the dollar is stronger in Canada, so I'm not getting beat up where the dollar $1 goes further. So 87 cents. I forget what it is, but $1 is stronger than Canadian money. So 87 cents, I think, is $1 in Canada right now, around that number. I could be wrong, so nobody quote me on that. But it's the idea that if I'm spending 87 Canadian, it turns out to be 65. But the shipping is killing me on it, and it's like he's got to figure out a better method because. Or he's got to add some value, and I like him, and he's a friend, and he knows exactly how I feel because this book is great. But I can't imagine that's my neighbor. Canada's the U.S.'s neighbor,
right.
So legitly, that's coming in either through a plane or legitly just it crosses the border in some fashion by vehicle. So it's not complicated but shipping to Singapore. I mean, your guys are in like the middle of Europe essentially.
Sorry?
I mean, Singapore, from my understanding, is middle of Europe, right? I mean, is Singapore part of Europe or is it part of the Middle East now?
Asia.
Wow, I am off. But I think the point is made, though, where you guys are not, in my understanding of Singapore, is that it's not like it's right on the coast of China. It's a little bit more inland, right?
It's even further off from China. I think it's around Malaysia, Indonesia, if you know it, or closer to Australia, I would say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So around that region.
Reason why I bring that up is that while you have ports, a Singapore port or where you would go into port is not like it's going to China, which constantly trades and ships come in and out from California and Japan, essentially. It's a little bit more obscure, and that also adds to it. It also adds time to it, where I know this because I have a friend, and she just Santine Phoenix, and she's doing Sirens, which is a bard book, and the name is slipping my mind. Savata, I think, is the land that she created with her husband, and she's the queen of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and they had a project before this one where their product, it took them a month to find a boat from like China from the printing. So that should give you an idea that shipping me a book, I mean, that could take a while because it's coming by boat. It's not coming by plane. And let's be realistic with the Suez Canal and COVID. I mean, the Suez Canal has messed up shipping for legitimately 5 months, and it's still being affected. Because those 3 weeks screwed up a lot of production.
Correct.
But I digress on that because I do want to get into the other side of this. I know we got off on a tangent. This happens on my show. But obviously you also did something very cool where you decided to rebuild it / remaster it, redevelop the core. I guess in the video game world, when they take an old game and break down the engine and then rebuilding up, you did that with this story. And so I'm going to show you some pictures in a second, but what prompted you to want to go back and remaster it and rebuild the engine? Because, and I'm going to say this very, very nicely, the first run wasn't bad, but it looks bad compared to the new run. And I say this very nicely. At any point, you can leave. At any point, I promise.
I agree, actually. I totally agree.
So
I guess that's why I also do that. Yeah, I guess
I'm going to show a bunch of images and we're going to talk about it.
I guess that's a good thing, I believe, because there wouldn't be a point to do the remastered edition if the first one wasn't if this remastered edition isn't like a stark improvement from the first one. I would say. Yeah, I guess when I started out, I wanted to keep everything within budget, and when I say within budget means I do it myself. Everything I do it by myself. So within for the first edition, the single issues version, I just did the pencils, inks, and everything by myself. The writing didn't really went through much editing, other than the grammatical errors, per se. But and the look of it, I just stuck with the simple, just black and white, because I can't do colors and everything. And of course, printing in black and white is much more cheaper than printing colors. So I also, because it was my very first comic back then, so I also accept that right, being in the sport right now, I accept that it wasn't like perfect in a way. So there's a lot of room for improvement, be in the writing and be in the art, because I've grown over the 2 years of writing and drawing as well. So I thought, since I'm gonna do a collector edition, why not bring it up a level? I could do it in grayscale, like a manga, or I could do it in colors. And of course, money plays a role as well. So I did it in grayscale. And so not just the remastering of the art, but I also did the remastering of some of the dialogues. So I had an editor to help me with where I'm lacking in. So some of the nitty gritty details which I had left out, but my editor helped me to include all this in, and it makes the book much more readable or better in a sense. And also my dialogues are not the best in a way, because I actually received feedback from some for the first edition. It's like as for example, for an American reader, they'll find that the dialogue is not as smooth, because if what they mention is correct in terms of English, but it's not so native when they read it out. Yeah. So that was one area that I had to target as well, to get my editor to really help me to work out the dialogues, to make it more friendly in a way to an international audience, rather than just, I would say, my local Singapore audience in that sense. So these are areas that I really worked in remastering, and that's how we came with the collector edition.
And even I'm going to show some pictures in a second here, and I think we're going to talk about it. And this is where we're going to start. So obviously, this is the black and white. That's not grayscale. So I guess on my left, and I think the one where my elf is the new version, and the one where my elf is not is the original. It also happens to say the original. And so what was this like for you, going back and saying, hey, we got to grayscale this and we got to add more depth to it, because, well, the grayscaled stuff, it adds more depth. And I think that anybody can see just on this page alone, the original, his pants, it sort of blends in a little bit more into the picture. And then with the remastered, you could tell that there's depth between these two. And it's very, very interesting. And so it's very cool, but it's also a big risk, because when you go and do this, it's kind of, you got to go back, and you also are acknowledging that your original work isn't the best.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with actually now looking on my desktop, putting it in side by side, there's really a big difference over here. The remaster edition really adds a lot of depth to it, like what you mentioned, and the original, it's kind of one dimensional in a way.
And then this is another one that just to show another one out there, and what's going on with it, and even just adding, even in this one, adding something to the background of this one also adds a huge amount of depth and adds a level to it. And it also even going further, sorry to interrupt, and I'll let you continue in a second. It's this idea that also it's darker, and it creates more of an interesting feel to it. And so what is that like too, with the depth and adding more of a darker tonality and giving more depth and all that stuff, because it changes the comic in a lot of ways and makes it a little bit more interesting to read, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's right. For the grayscale and the screen tone is actually done by a Singaporean artist as well, known as Ace. Yeah, I think he's genius in it. So you could see that he really he really didn't just do a basic screen tone, but rather he really incorporated what that particular scene was trying to show. So over here, we could see pretty clearly that the classmates or like the schoolmates are laughing at him, mocking Nathan. And in the original version, we could just see, okay, their face very clearly. Okay, they are mocking at him. Okay, so it was just like a normal scene. But within the new remastered edition, that background and that whole effect with the darker tone covering the faces of the schoolmates, I think it really brings out that nature of this bullying process within just this one scene on its own. Yeah, so I totally accept it that the original version isn't just as good as the remastered edition, but I'm totally happy with it because seeing how the remastered edition looks right now, I think it helps to bring out the story or the content that I tried to bring out much better way, I would say.
And this is just another one of those examples that are out there that's very cool with it. And obviously, again, a lot of the stuff that we already spoke about, we get out there, and also just also those grayscale highlights, especially in this scene, especially the bottom panel, it's just really nice to see sort of it a little bit more defined with the action scene that's going on. And that's cool too, and it's also cleaner to some degree, and that's very nice as well with that. And it's just making it cleaner, and yeah, I think the remastered edition is a really nice touch to that, and capturing some of this, and also understanding what that punch looks like. So really well done with that, and I feel that that's just some of what's going on, because some people might have read the original and now they're seeing the remastered. And as I stated, it's sort of a risk to do this because you're going back and fixing your work. And we've seen that work well with some people in comics, and it's worked horrific with others. And I'll give a great example of this. Victor Santos with Polar. Polar was essentially a non-word comic. And then he went back and he added words to it, and he added, like Sin City Color strips to it and a variety of stuff. And he broke down the engine. And those 5 issues are phenomenal. Though they are phenomenal. There's 4 issues and then there's an issue 0. And it's talking about the Black Kaiser. And oh my God, it's a phenomenal comic. And it's worked really well. But then you get things like J. Scott Campbell with Spider-Man 601, where he's gotten a lot of flack, and now he's fixing 607, and it's bad. It's not a good outcome, because while it actually increased the value of 601, oddly enough, that entire ordeal, but even still, it's not going well for that when you go back and you start criticizing your own work that's iconic as well. So it is a risk, and the fact that this paid off and you took the risk, I think, deserves credit.
Yep. At the same time, I also wanted, because like mentioned, there are people who have read already the first edition, the single issues edition. So sort of they had already read the story, they had already seen the art. So if I'm doing just a normal collector edition, like what else could I offer to them? That was something that I asked myself. So if I was the reader, would I just buy a collector edition, a re-relaunch version of the same content? Would I just spend another, let's say, $30 on it, or so on? So I thought, why not I give something that is more to the readers, because technically I'm repackaging the first 7 issues, but right now I want to give something more. So even if they have already read the story, they have already seen the art, it's like a new experience, a whole new experience while they reread this version. And of course, we have additional materials, like for example, art fan art done by other artists as well. So all this, but I guess the main bulk of it being remastered would really give a brand new experience to the original readers as well. Yeah. And
so let's talk about that fan art, because, and again, I'm going to be as nice as possible when I say this. In the U.S., I know very few artists from Singapore. I think most people in the U.S. know very few people from Singapore, and you have a fan art section in this book And obviously, this is a large book, and I think it's a nice collected edition. And so, what is that like? Because that's giving an introduction to everybody who buys this book and orders it, whether you pick it up digitally or physically. And we're going to get to rewards in a second. But what is that like? Because that's a real gateway opening opportunity for some people, because there's a lot of people who say, hey, I'm looking for artists, and they might see somebody in that fan art and say, well, I like this artist style, and I want to book them on a variant, or I like what they're doing, or they'd be perfect for my book, and I didn't even know they existed. And you're opening up a lot of doors in a world for them, or the potential of a bunch of doors to be opened up. And so what is that like for you? Because it's a big opportunity that you're giving to a bunch of people, even if it's just fan art to some degree. And so what is that like? Because in many ways you're creating an opportunity and attaching a bunch of names to your project. And I think a lot of creators in the US, somebody just made an entire video about fan art being illegal and using your IP, and how he made a TikTok saying, well, it's artists can eat, but it's also taking somebody's character, and I'm a content creator. And I'm saying to myself, though, but this, on the other hand, you're opening up opportunity for a bunch of people to be discovered. And that's just as important as copyright law and playing with your characters to some degree.
Yeah, so okay, I guess it all begins with my local comic scene in Singapore. The local comic scene over here, I would say, I think most of us locals would actually agree that Singapore don't really have a local comics industry. So there really isn't too many people doing indie comics within Singapore. Of course, we have like the exceptional guys like Sunny Liu. Of course, Arjun is also in Singapore. Yeah, so all these amazing guys. But for self-creator own kind of stories, indie comics within Singapore is very few, I would say. Yeah, but I guess we could all see from the fan art gallery that we have really quite a number of talented people around Singapore. And I think including their works within it, of course, firstly it helps to make the book, it provides the book extra content. But we could also, I think something interesting is we could also see that based on the same characters like the Nathan and the side characters, we could see a different take to it, even if it's based on the same design, but just coming out from a different artist. There's many different styles that they could take from it. So that is something very interesting, I think, for my readers.
It's also the idea that this book, its audience, while you're from Singapore, its audience is in the US, it's in Japan, it's the world. And even if you sell only 500 copies, the majority of those copies are not going to be in Singapore. And that's the thing that matters, where there's 500 people, and the majority of them are going to be seeing a bunch of these up and coming new Singapore artists. And it's very, very important that they're getting a huge platform. And I understand that somebody might say, oh, it's only 500 books. That's a big platform when you're not known and you're in a country that doesn't have an indie comic scene. That's a big platform. Not to mention that this is attached to a Kickstarter. There's a social community built in. You're talking about it, and we're not talking about those artists per se, but guess what? They're attached to the book, and we're talking about the book. And I put the link up above for everybody who wants to check it out. And so it's very, very important that you're really giving an opportunity to a variety of people to have an opportunity to expand beyond just their country and their local scene. Because the local comic scene now isn't anymore physically where you are. It's very much on the internet. And this is very much that. And it's very important, I think, that this is in your book.
Yes. And who knows, that might be the opportunity that they need to just break through into the industry. Yeah, because sometimes they have the skills, but it's just a platform for them to get seen by even more people. And like mentioned, maybe some creators from the United States might just see, okay, I like this style, I want to work with him, then their names and their Instagram social media handle are all within the fan art itself. So yeah, people could really just contact them and okay, let's work together with them. I think it helps the artist himself, themselves. It helps the my Singapore local comic scene as well. I guess it's a win-win situation in a way. It also helped my book, of course, definitely.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think more indie comic creators need to do stuff like this, and I think they need to worry less about their intellectual property for 5 minutes and actually understand what they're doing for their audience. And I think it's a big debate in America. My father's an attorney. I was going to be a lawyer, and I realized I was going to be miserable as an attorney. And I am thankfully glad I am not a lawyer, because I think I would kill myself if I was. I much want to work for the government, 9 to 5, get out, get my 401k matching, and I'll make more money in a variety of ways. Cryptocurrency to the moon, guys, and comic book investing to the moon. But obviously, it's not about me today. I do want to talk about rewards because you have a bunch of them. And so obviously you got a digital reward. So for people who don't want to pay that shipping and you're in the US, that's an option. A physical copy, if you're a physical collector, that's an option as well. If you're all across the world, you get a physical copy with a sketch card commission. You can get a physical copy with an A5 commission, physical with original interior art, I believe. I think you can get the original back cover art if you wanted it. I think you get the original cover art. And then I think there's like a double page, or there might be 2 or 3 double pages in there. And I think you get one of those as well. And so obviously there's a lot of stuff, and none of this is ultra expensive for the most part. So, I think everything is pretty reasonably afforded for what it is. So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that you can go, but there's also not that many options. So that's the other thing that I like about your Kickstarter, is that it's nice and simple. It's not overly complicated with 50 variants, and you get covers A, B, and C, or you get D and F and G, or you could get the anime pack, which is covers A, B, I, and Z, and ZA. I know people who and I love them to death, and they got really cool projects, but they're running like legitly when they do regular covers, they do new covers of the regular covers, they do foils of that, they do then metals, and then they do like galleries, and now you have legitly 5 of the same cover. If you count the names as the same cover, and I'm saying to myself, like, you gotta pay an artist for that. You gotta print that. When you're printing a metal, it's a different ball game. When you're printing this thing, and I don't want that. And I'm a variant guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm a variant guy, and I make money on comics with variants. And I'm saying to myself, like, it's mind-boggling. I much prefer simplicity.
Yeah, agree. That's why I didn't went for any of the variant covers. Actually, I toyed with the idea of perhaps like a variant kind of like Kickstarter exclusive dust jacket. But I decided, okay, maybe for the first collector edition, I might just keep it simple. I still like to have like, for example, for variant covers, technically they are having they are doing the same thing as a fan art gallery that I did. But they put it on the cover, so they have different artists on with the different takes on the same characters as well, but on the cover. But I think for, let's say, for more casual kind of reader, it might actually just confuse them as well. So I decided just to keep it simple. Of course, I
also think your book, is your book a soft cover or a hard cover?
It's a hardcover.
So also, and this is just my opinion, and people can take it for what it is. I think your cover, and especially when it's hard covers, people like looking at nice hard covers, and I don't know if people want a variant. Like, I have a bunch of those like nice collectible editions of those 18 issues, and I don't want a variant of it. If that makes any sense, it makes no sense to me, because it all forms together on a shelf nicely, and that's what it's supposed to do. Like, the sagas are really good at that. Where the sagas, it's like blue, and it all looks nice. It all is uniform. And if there is variance, then the variant is not going to look the same uniformity as, the other thing. And I think, when you're doing collected editions, I think it gets wonky. And even when you go into Barnes & Noble has their own exclusive on certain books, it gets wonky. It starts getting wonky because you start losing some uniformity, and it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I agree. Even for the big companies like the big two, the Marvel and DC, they even for their omnibus, their collector edition, they also only had like the dust jacket being different. Yeah, there are two editions I think for each omnibus. Yeah, but for the hardcover collection, they also don't do variant covers. Yeah, I think it's too much of a work, and it does like I mentioned, it doesn't really make sense for people to have like two thick books on the shelf that provide the same content.
What people do in Kickstarter now is that they might have two different covers, but they're the same price, and it's just your preference on the cover, just to mix it up, just to give people choices. And I've seen that with anthologies where it's a cover A and it's a cover B, and it's just whatever cover you want. They're both the same price. It's not an issue anymore of price. Somebody just says, hey, look, I want to go to a con and I want to have a more male-focused cover and I want to have a more female-focused cover. The book's the same. It's just that, they want to market it a little bit different because you might not buy the book because of the cover, but then you might buy the same book because of a different cover. And that happens. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We are visual people. Humanity is a very visual entity. And so that happens. So, but I really think with a hardcover, it doesn't work because when I'm buying an omnibus or I'm buying a hardcover collectible edition, I want uniformity, especially if I'm going to buy like 6 of them. With the Saga, it's going to be 6 of those hard covers, and it's going to be a $300 set. And when I throw that thing up on my shelf, which at some point when I move into a studio, there's going to be bookcases behind me with all of the cool stuff and all the good graphic novels and all the nice bound books because it makes for an awesome backdrop.
Yeah,
I'm not interested in putting up a non-uniform book.
Correct. It's my pet peeve actually. For like sometimes you get to see like a volume 1 it looks like this, and then volume 2 the number is misaligned or things like this, or it's really bad. Yeah, uniformity is really important for the hardcovers, I would say. I agree.
It's important even on a regular comic cover. Well, your logo needs to be in the same place every time, unless there's a reason why it's not there. There are a few exceptions to those rules. So, for instance, if you purposely have a character grabbing the logo purposely out of it, and then it's like a blank spot on your cover, it makes 100% sense because you're playing with it purposely. But if you're not playing with it purposely, it makes no sense. Or, if you put, limited edition in the same spot, but it was drawn in a way that's going to affect the cover, then you move it. But for the most part, you need uniformity in books because it doesn't make any sense. Like Zenescope does serial covers. If they put what they usually put on every single collectible in the same spot, it'll fuck up the cover. It will screw up the cover, so you have to move it. But they don't do that for every single cover they do. For the most part, they keep it in the same area for a good reason because it's important. And with VIP books, it's always in the same area.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it works. But I digress. And then even going further, there's a bunch of add-ons because I think you could add on all 7 of the original for those who are collectors. If you think this is going to get optioned, guys, and turn into an anime show, and you want to spec on it, you could add all of the single issues, I think. You could also pick up Save Me from Chloe, Destiny and the Unexplainables. And so obviously there's some other stuff that you worked on that you were part of, and anything with the original you could pick up. And I'm sure that if somebody has some weird request and they're willing to pay for it, I'm sure they could DM you and you'll
definitely
accordingly. So obviously, what is that like for you? Because that actually opens up a huge door for you as well.
With the add-ons, you mean?
So the add-ons, in which that just adds a huge opportunity for you to sell your other work and your other projects. So Save Me Chloe is a spin-off somewhat of this entire graphic novel, and then obviously your other work. And what is that like? Because it is cool what Kickstarter allows you to do now with backer kit and add-ons, where before you had to create tiers for that.
Yeah, that's right. When I first started Kickstarter, back then there wasn't really the add-ons. So right now with the add-on, it really allows the backers to have flexibility in, okay, I want this, so I just add it in, rather than a whole bunch of tiers, like 20 different tiers, and then they have to search through what they like. So it's really, really convenient right now. And of course, with the add-ons, like mentioned, those includes my other works, my other comic books as well. So for people who are let's say who are interested in this hardcover edition, but they also like to see other comics. For example, Save Me from Chloe is a spin-off from the same title. So perhaps they love Nathan and they love his little sister Chloe. So they could get the Save Me from Chloe as well. It's an all ages comic. So perhaps people who find this a little too dark, they may move towards that, which is more kid friendly, I would say. Yeah. So it provides different options for the customer as well, and of course it helps to save in the shipping as well for international backers. So it's sort of like I just pay once for the shipping, and I can get technically everything one shot, so I don't have to pay multiple times shipping.
And that's very helpful because shipping is very complicated. I run an eBay business, so I am shipping, and I always say to all my customers now, I say, look, what else can I get for you? Because for the first 5 books, it stays at about $10, and then for the 6th book, it goes up to $2, but you're still saving a lot of money because, and most of the time, if I'm sending you 8 books, it's going to run you about $15. It's going to cost me $20, but obviously I sold you a hell of a lot more product. So I'll take a $5 hit to make, to turn a $30 sale into a $300 sale, but everybody's happy because everybody's making, money and saving money on that front. So obviously that's very important on that front, but yeah, so I think it's great. So, and then obviously I want to back out of all of this now, and I do want to talk briefly about Singapore and pop culture, and where do you even, what does Singapore look like? Because obviously I'm in the US, we are COVID up, COVID down. I'm on the East Coast, and we're going into draconian law here with some crazy circumstances, and vaccination cards are getting crazy, and who knows what the hell's about to happen. But what does Singapore look like with COVID, for starters? Because I don't think people are fully aware of that.
Singapore, I guess we are dealing with COVID fairly well. I think it's fairly well. I think I read an article that we are one of the highest vaccinated countries so far. So even around 70-80% fully vaccinated so far. Yeah, so I guess that's good, but we really haven't gone back to before COVID times. I'm not sure if we will ever go back to before COVID times, like all the conventions and everything. Haven't had a convention for 1 to 2 years so far, and not sure when's the next one. So the rules are a bit stricter here in a way we minimize the large scale activities. Yeah, while we are trying to get everyone fully vaccinated, and hopefully after everyone gets fully vaccinated, it gets better. Yeah, it's a little depressing, seeing how it was prospering before then, and right now because COVID everything slows down so badly. Yeah. But I guess on the COVID side, so far I would say Singapore is still doing pretty well. Yeah.
And then obviously, even going further into that, what does the convention scene look like in Singapore? Because obviously in America we have a fuck ton of cons every year, and obviously with COVID we haven't had major of those. But what does it look like in Singapore?
I think it's a big difference. I would love to go to the US for a convention one day, someday. Hopefully after the COVID dies down. Yeah, but for Singapore, I would say because we are more manga oriented, so we have more conventions, small scale. When we say convention, it's really small scale, like maybe up to 10,000 foothold, up to 10,000 audience. Mostly are manga anime oriented. So if we are talking about Western comics, I think there's one major one at the end of the year, annually, other than this year and last year, of course. Yeah. So that is probably one of the biggest one. But if we were to compare with, let's say, American ones, yeah, even though we call it comic convention, but the number of booths selling comics is actually quite limited in Singapore. Yeah, I mean, like, we are a smaller country, so definitely. Yeah, but looking at pictures from the conventions in the United States, it's a big difference lah. It's a big difference. I'd say the scale is very different as well. But of course, it's still fun with the convention scene here. Just much more milder, I would say. Yeah.
Well, that's my dog barking, and apparently she's having a fit. And I apologize to everybody in that, and she's not getting a treat now. I can tell you that. So that's my cue. That obviously we should be wrapping this up. And so I do want to give you an opportunity to self-promote yourself before she goes even worse here. So where can people find you? Where could people check out the Kickstarter? Where could people, obviously follow you on social media, check out your website, all that fun stuff that's out there with what you're doing? Because obviously I want people to buy the book as well, and as well as even support your next thing and stay up to date with what you're doing.
So you can follow me on my Facebook and Instagram via Chiral Comics. So CHIRAL Comics. Yeah. For the Kickstarter, the link is in the bio of my Instagram as well. And for my website, it's also the same handle, chiralcomics.com. Yeah. So CHIRAL Comics.
And then I've been saying this all the time too, and now that she's finally calmed down, and right as we're wrapping up, that's my dog for you. It's her way or the highway. But obviously, what I've been saying is you have to support indie comics, and one of the things about that, what that means is that you have to back Kickstarters, because backing Kickstarters is what matters. Especially when people run it, because a lot of these people cannot get their books done without your support from the Kickstarter. So that is super, super important. And then even going further, let's say it's your not cup of tea, or you're in a bit of an economic struggle right now, and look, everybody's been there. It happens, with things going on with COVID and the world obviously not necessarily being completely straightened out at the moment. The best next thing you can do is follow people on Instagram, support people on Twitter. That means following, liking, commenting, sharing the Kickstarter, because you might not be interested, or you might, not be able to, pick up a copy, or, you might be concerned about the shipping and all that stuff. But you could share it, and you never know who is going to be checking it out, because, your best friend could be like, oh man, this looks awesome. And then he backed it. Or somebody says, oh man, I've been looking for something that's manga oriented, and boom. So sharing goes a long way, and commenting and liking, all that stuff affects the algorithm. And while we're on the topic of obviously supporting indie, if you're a comic printer, obviously Mixum, using my name gets you 5% off. Also, this show, while I do have a sponsor, is still very much fan supported. I have in the link up below the Kickstarter, my sponsorship is something called Buy Me a Coffee. It's very much like Patreon, and it's an easy, quick way for people to, check out and throw about $5, which goes right back into the show. As well as, if you're interested, you could DM me, and you can actually advertise in a banner spot beneath here on interviews. And well, that's just another option that is being utilized now as well. And so a lot of cool ways going on with stuff. But again, I want everybody to go out and support that Kickstarter. You could back it digitally, and it's a great read. I've read half of it. I'm probably going to finish the other half tonight, and it is really, really exciting to read. And it's an easy read, and, obviously I want people to go back it. So on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
So yeah, back the Kickstarter. Even if you are an international audience, you can save on shipping. Digital is the way to go. Yeah. Otherwise, if you are a collector, go for the physical edition. You won't regret it. It's a good story. Yeah. So The World Marina Volume 1 will be on Kickstarter until 11th of September. Yeah. So we have about 16 to 17 days left. Yeah, and we are fully funded, which means even if right now you back you start backing from right now, we will have stretch goals, and technically you are getting more rewards for the same amount of money. Yeah, so we need your support, and yeah, let's make this a successful Kickstarter.
Well, I don't think I could have said that any better myself, and so I believe that right there is a wrap.